2771 The Unmaking. There was a heavy silence in the Sun Temple, the burden of Quetzalcoatl's words coloring the darkness in the hues of calamity. After a long time passed, it was the eagle who spoke, surprising many. You paint a dreary picture, winged serpent. The ruler of the skull was as nebulous as he was fearsome. In fact, among all the supreme beings of the Sun Realm, he was the only one Quetzalcoatl was truly wary of. The same held true for the other kings and queens of Mictlan, who regarded the eagle with a hint of apprehension. It was understandable. In Mictlan, being close to the sky meant being close to death. So, all those who chose to soar its cloudy expanse, beyond the safe darkness of the Great Bones, were seen as faintly mad, even if they carried the sacred responsibility of breaking the cloud veil in case the jungle had grown too strong. Quetzalcoatl carried a bit of that stigma, himself. The eagle glanced at him somberly. But you are not wrong. As things stand, Mictlan is indeed doomed to be swallowed by corruption, which is why I have been advocating for an alternative solution to simply growing stronger. A solution that you and the Fallen One kept rejecting. He cast a heavy gaze at the rulers of the Sun Realm. Now that the boundary of our home has been breached and we are not isolated from the rest of existence anymore, we can traverse the frightening expanse of the Fallen Realms and reach the borders of other divine ones. There should be plenty of mighty warriors and noble creatures living safely there, still. The eagle smiled chillingly. You said it yourself, winged serpent, the Sun Realm is the first to bloom with the seeds of nightmare, but it won't be the last. So, it will be in their interest to help us fight against the doom. We should rally champions from all of existence to halt the spread of corruption, instead of relying solely on our own strength. The Fallen One spoke then, his voice sounding ancient and inhuman. You cannot. The eagle did not seem satisfied with that answer. Why? The towering figure of the Sun Temple's prisoner shifted faintly, his 12 wings casting vast shadows upon the walls. Because you carry the nightmare spell within you, and therefore the seeds of doom as well. If you ever enter a realm that has not known their curse yet, you will bring those seeds with you, planting them into fertile soil. You will only hasten their demise. The eagle smiled. Hasten it, not cause it. Why postpone the inevitable? Wouldn't it be better if all of us united against the great threat, even if it meant that many would die earlier than their time? Quetzalcoatl shook his head. You are growing madder with each decade, eagle. What use will the children of other gods be? Even if they are many, none of them is more powerful than we are. And if even our power is not enough to prevent the doom from swallowing everything, what could they do? He crossed his arms. No, there is only one answer to our plight. It is for us to grow even stronger. He glanced at the rulers of the Sun Realm and bared his teeth in a furious grin. And luckily, I bring the news of a good omen. I have discovered a path for us to do just that. Finally, the rulers of the Sun Realm showed a strong reaction. Some were skeptical, others suddenly seemed full of focus, but none remained indifferent. In truth, Quetzalcoatl's powers of precognition were not that impressive. The omen of doom he described to his high priest was not his own. It was a prophecy that the Fallen One had shared with him once, a long time ago. The Fallen One saw too many things and knew too many truths, which was his burden. But Quetzalcoatl did sense a shift in the laws governing the Sun Realm recently, and confirmed his suspicion. After sacrificing the great beast to himself. So, he was confident in the news he brought. Rejoice, my brothers and sisters. A nightmare gate unlike any before has opened in the Spinasia. The eel is most likely dead by now, and cursed ones have invaded Mictlan. They must have conquered the spine already. From there, they will enter the cage bone, the skull, and in time, the rest of our realm as well. The corruption they have brought upon is already poisoning the jungle, making it greater and stronger. Soon, calamity will descend upon your kingdoms, washing away our peace. His bright smile did not fit the grotesque promise of destruction his words carried at all. The rulers of the Sun Realm stirred. Have you lost your mind, winged serpent? Why would we feel joy at the news of such powerful enemies invading our realm? The otter sounded disgruntled. Is that why you called us? To launch a joint campaign against these horrors? The ape was ready to wage war. We've slain cursed ones before. The hummingbird was unimpressed. The leopard just smiled quietly. Quetzalcoatl shook his head. The cursed ones do not matter. The nightmare gate does not matter. The only thing that matters is the seed that bloomed to manifest it, the seed of a fifth trial. Scathing the rulers of the Sun Realm with a smoldering look, he bared his fangs again and said in a damning tone. I intend to challenge the fifth trial of the nightmare spell and conquer it. I intend to break through the wall of apotheosis and ascend to the sky of divinity. I will become the first god to be born after the great gods died, and I invite you to come with me. His voice echoed in between the ancient walls of the Sun Temple. Together, we will sanctify Mictlan and make it a divine realm once more. Then, we will burn away corruption from the bones of the Sun Killer and bring upon a new golden age. What say you, children of the Sun? The rulers of the Sun realm glanced at each other. Then, the leopard finally spoke. Turning to the Fallen One, he bowed faintly and asked in a calm tone. You know more about the world than we do, Elder. Tell me, is what my brother says true? Can we really conquer the fifth trial, and if so, what should we do before answering its call? The Fallen One remained silent for a long while. Eventually, his wings moved faintly, making the flame burning in the braziers dance. His voice resounded from under the hood, sounding hollow. The fifth trial of Weaver's spell is a cruel one. It can make you into deities, but to do so, it must undo you as humans first. Not everyone can survive the unmaking, and not everyone can survive what comes next. He lingered for a moment, and then added in a solemn tone. You must conquer the trial together, but you can only face the unmaking alone. Every weapon you wield, and every power you possess, will weigh you down. Worst of all, your very own domains will turn against you. The Fallen One shuddered, as if burdened by his own prophecy. Out there in the nightmare, you will only be able to rely on yourself to survive. But maintaining the truth of yourself will be far more difficult than staying alive. That is the true peril of the fifth trial, and that is what you must overcome. Quetzalcoatl smiled, undaunted. I have faced the White Abyss alone. I have survived the jungle alone. I have built myself from the many enemies I've slain. Do you think that the nightmare spell can unmake me? He shook his head. I will not be condemned by its trial. I will triumph over it and save Mictlan instead, becoming the god of salvation. Such were his prideful words. Quetzalcoatl, the winged serpent, the god-king of Mictlan, was not daunted by the Fallen One's words. After all, he was the heir of Sun, God and the strongest supreme among the rulers of the Sun realm. His will was absolute. If only he'd listened. 2772 Message in a bottle. Cassie managed to free herself of the vivid memory, dazed by the alien strangeness of the world contained within it. Mictlan, Quetzalcoatl, the eel, the eagle. Was it Godgrave? Yes, she had witnessed the past of Godgrave, of the Sun realm. The first of the divine realms to be infected by the nightmare spell, and the first one to be consumed by the dream realm as well. Mictlan was what the civilization that had been born there in the wake of the Doom War called the Hollows. The Sun Temple was the vanishing lake citadel, which Nephis had mostly destroyed during her battle against Moonveil. The Doom was what they had called the Nightmare. Quetzalcoatl was a supreme who, like Nephis, had inherited the lineage of Sun God. Who had possessed the fire? He was also most likely the cursed tyrant, Condemnation, whom the King of Swords had slain during the war. The memory of the ancient monarch was so clear and vivid, as if Cassie had been there herself. But how did she come to possess that memory? Or any of the memories around her, for that matter, that did not belong to Her, or to people and creatures whose memories she had witnessed? I don't know. Trying to collect herself, she extended the tendrils of her will in search of her own memories. There were a few small memories with sharp edges nearby. In one of them, Cassie was in Bastion long before it became a thriving metropolis. There was no settlement on the ashen shores of the lake, and the awakened who served Clan Valor all lived within the walls of the castle. She was a young woman who, nonetheless, had already become a master, walking across the battlements of the outer wall. The view of the radiant lake and the ashen wasteland beyond was both breathtaking and foreboding, but, of course, she could not appreciate its solemn beauty. That was because she was blind, and there was no one nearby whose senses she could share. Until there was. A knight in polished memory armor and a vermilion cloak was standing guard atop the wall, examining the distant shore somberly. He was not in the mood to appreciate the view, either. As a retainer of the great Clan Valor and one of its ascended knights, his duty was to monitor the lake for signs of danger. It must have happened shortly after Nephis was adopted by Clan Valor, before the Chain of Nightmares. In the memory, Cassie was walking past the knight. Hearing her steps, he turned and spared her an alert look. Then, his eyes widened a little. Oh, Lady Cassia. She saw her own young face through his eyes. Stopping, Cassie faced him and bowed slightly. Good day. He hesitated for a moment, as if feeling shy, then asked. What brings you here? She smiled. I'm just taking a stroll. A tentative smile appeared on his lips, as well. Oh, I see. Cassie remained silent for a few moments, then exhaled slowly and said in a clear voice. Actually, I've been thinking. He raised an eyebrow. Yes. She shrugged. It's nothing really. I was just thinking that when I become a saint, I should find a man named Sunless and wish him a happy birthday on the day of the winter solstice. The knight blinked a couple of times. Pardon, Cassie smiled. Just thinking aloud. Carry on, sir. I won't distract you anymore. The memory ended. However, there was another one nearby. In it, Cassie saw the same knight. Only she was a little older by then, and already a transcendent. Their conversation was not that cordial, either. Traitor. The knight was kneeling on the ground, held in place by Torment's tendrils. The tip of the quiet dancer's blade was hovering at his neck. Standing above him with a cold expression, Cassie addressed him in a calm tone. Do not strain yourself, sir. Nothing good will come of you getting injured. The knight only began to struggle more desperately, the plates of his enchanted armor bending and buckling under the pressure. You won't get away with this. Once I report your treachery to the king, your days will be numbered. An emotionless smile twisted Cassie's lips. But you won't even remember that we had met. Now, sir, show me what I want to know. The knight's eyes widened. I'll never tell you anything. Indifferent, Cassie pulled her blindfold down. Keep your silence. There is no need for you to speak, sir. The man's struggles slowly ceased, an entranced expression appearing on his face. Cassie invaded his memories, searching for the secrets of the great clan Valor. However, in the process, she found something strange. It was a memory of them meeting on the walls of Bastion before the Chain of Nightmares. There was nothing particularly odd about that memory, besides the fact that Cassie did not remember that conversation at all. Her memory was absolute, but at the same time, most of it was gone, at least most of her memories as an awakened. So, it was both peculiar and normal to discover a memory of herself that she did not remember in someone else's mind. The conversation itself, though, was a bit strange. A man named Sunless. Why would Cassie seek out a man with such a peculiar name, and on the day of the winter solstice no less? Was it some kind of wordplay? Or some kind of code? Before all that, why had she blurted that odd sentence out, unprompted, to a complete stranger? None of it made sense. Unless, Cassie's hands trembled. It has to be, unless she had known that she would forget that conversation, that she would capture this knight one day, and that she would see herself while reading his memory Unless she had been sending her future self a message. The memory came to an end, leaving Cassie confused. And then, the memory of Cassie being confused ended, as well, leaving her thoughtful. Still incomplete, she extended the tendrils of her will to a shard with a similar scent. In that memory, Cassie was a master once again, entering a modest cafe in NQSC. There was a line, so she stood at its tail, behind a tall man. Well, all men seemed tall to her, considering her own petite stature. As if sensing her presence, the man in question turned around and looked at her. Then, he did a double take. There was a long bout of silence, and then he asked in a startled tone. Excuse me, aren't you Lady Cassia? Song of the Fallen? Cassie smiled. Yes, nice to meet you. The man's mouth hung open. A few moments later, he composed himself and bowed. Wow, it's an honor to meet you, Master Cassia. She could not see, but she suspected that there was a silly kind of smile on his face. The man coughed. I can't believe I just ran into a celebrity. My wife won't believe me. He fell silent for a moment, and then added in a happy tone. Oh, my name is Yutra. Awakened Yutra. Actually, my wife and I went to see your movie on one of our first real dates. He was probably talking about that horrid propaganda piece about the events of the Forgotten Shore. Cassie chuckled. Well, I'm glad to know that it worked out for you. She exhaled slowly, and then added in a clear voice. Actually, I've been thinking. The memory ended there. 2,773 memories of the plague. Cassie finally managed to compose herself. The tendrils of her will sprawled through the dark ocean of memories, twisting as they grasped those shards that had to do with her past. Her childhood, her youth, the years of darkness she had endured after becoming awakened. The core of her being was slowly taking shape. Even if there were still plenty of gaps in her understanding of herself, she at least knew enough to know how to fill them. The abyssal expanse of memories still felt daunting, but now, she faced it as an adversary instead of prey. The phantom pain of her missing EYE was still shredding her consciousness apart. Which in and of itself told her something. I must be using my transcendent ability. Even in this subliminal space, there was cause and effect. After losing an eye to the dream spawn, Cassie had to endure gruesome torment every time she wanted to use her transformation, So, it was reasonable to assume that the agony she felt now was the result of using her transformation as well. If so, the dark OCE and of memories surrounding her would betray a hint of meaning. But not an explanation. What happened to me? Enduring the pain, she reached for more recent memories. The memories that had to do with the Dreamspawn. Some of them belonged to her, and some of them belonged to others. But all of them had one thing in common, a heavy, suffocating feeling of a growing threat. They were the memories of a plague. Rain found herself in a familiar darkness once more. The sky above her was like a lightless abyss. The ground beneath her was a wide, nearly seamless expanse of gray plates stretching toward the horizon like a stone river. She gave the solid plate she was standing on a good stomp and smiled. I built this road. A quiet chuckle resounded from the darkness. An army of workers and engineers built this road. Rain turned up her nose. I was one of them, though. And I even gave it a name. The two of them had only just reached the Road of Shadows. It crossed Godgrave from east to west, hidden from the merciless sky by the fragment of the Shadow Realm. Anywhere else on the surface of the titanic skeleton, one's life could be scattered by the wind like an evanescent cloud. But here, travelers could enjoy peace, safety, and the cool embrace of darkness. Well, safety from the radiant skies of Godgrave, at least. Rain looked into the distance with a wistful smile. You know, the people who populated the Dream Realm are long gone. But many things they built still stand. Mirage Castle, the Jade Palace, Rivergate, the Dark City, and so much more. People still live among those ancient walls, walk along the trodden paths, and stop from time to admire the great monuments of old. She fell silent, studied the Road of Shadows for a while, and then gave it a softer stomp. So, I can't help but wonder if one day, long after I'm gone, people will travel across this road and think about its builders. That'd be nice, don't you think? Sunny answered in an agreeable tone. It will indeed be nice if there are still people to walk this road in the future. He sounded a little distracted, though. Rain studied the darkness with a thoughtful expression. So, what exactly happened? You have been out of sorts ever since the Hollows. He lingered for a while. Well, there's a bit of trouble. A new sovereign showed up, and he's difficult to deal with. Rain raised an eyebrow. Who? The King of Nothing? That's old news, though. A heavy sigh resounded from the darkness. No, not him. Rain opened her eyes wide. Wait, there's another new Supreme. Goodness, it hasn't even been a year since the last one popped up. Hey, tell me honestly, do you Supremes grow on a tree? The darkness answered with an unamused silence. Eventually, though, it did respond. No, oh, but actually, this particular Supreme has a lot in common with a certain tree. There are plenty of reasons, really. First of all, being willful is simply our nature. Secondly, we are children of war, after all. Besides that, the nightmare spell itself is designed in a way that pits Supremes against each other. But most importantly, the first cohort to have achieved supremacy was rotten. So, we're still dealing with the consequences of that one misfortune. He let out a heavy sigh. It all went wrong when Smile of Heaven died in Aimgiaika. Rain had not expected a detailed answer instead of one of his usual outrageous tirades, so she was taken aback a little. Eventually, she asked, how bad can this new jerk be, though? Sunny remained silent for a while. It's pretty bad. Worse than usual, I'd say. Rain let out a nervous chuckle. The usual was already pretty atrocious. Wait, there won't be another war, will there? He stayed quiet, making Rain anxious. Will there? Finally, Sunny answered in a dark tone, who knows? Even if there is, it will be very different from the previous one. Wars aren't only fought with swords, you know. Rain cursed quietly. Well, that's just wonderful. Neither of them spoke for a minute or two. In the end, Sunny broke the silence with a light-hearted question. Anyway, where are you off to now? Rain sighed. She looked west. The Moonriver Plains lay there, and beyond them, Ravenheart. She had not seen her family in a long time, so she missed them a lot. It would have been great to pay them a visit. Then, Rain looked east. There, the Road of Shadows led to a region of the Dream Realm known as the Glass Hell. Beyond it lay the Chained Isles, and from there, one could travel south from citadel to citadel until they eventually reached Bastion. A journey like that would take many months, though. Of course, Rain could use the waking world as a shortcut and get to Bastion through a dream gate instead. Well, and there was a Supreme capable of instantly moving between shadows hiding in her own. She made a bitter face. My work at Rivergate is over, so I wanted to visit the Chained Isles. They pulled a flying island from a literal abyss there, you know, and are affixing it at the heart of the region to anchor the rest of the islands. So, I want to take a look, but I am sort of afraid of Telly's mom, considering that she snuck out to challenge a nightmare. Sunny let out a short laugh. Oh, good thinking. I'd be afraid too. Rain took a deep breath. Still, I need to get back to Bastion and concentrate on my work, as well as on my ascension. We will be ready to unveil Natural Awakening to the masses once I become a master, so, there is no time to waste. The darkness seemed to shift slightly. Yeah, I'll become busy now, too. Sunny remained silent for a few moments, then asked in a neutral tone. Shall I take us to the waking world? Or we can stop by the Chained Isles first, after all. Rain looked west once again, where small dots had appeared on the horizon just a few moments ago. She studied them silently, then shook her head. No need. I'll travel with the caravan to the Red Hill and use the gateway there. You can stay in my shadow or leave to attend to your business, do as you like. He laughed again. Yeah, no chance I'll leave you alone when there's a mad sovereign running around. Well, one more mad sovereign. Rain frowned and looked into the darkness with a dubious expression. Are there sane ones? That's news to me. 2774 First symptoms. Instead of simply hiding in Rain's shadow, Sunny wrapped himself around her body to augment her. Godgrave might have been somewhat safer now, but it was still more or less a death zone. With other people around, he could not use his powers freely, which meant that his sister could use an additional layer of protection. Letting out a sigh, she summoned her bow and a quiver. Then, she began walking east. Before too long, the mighty merchant caravan had caught up with her. Enormous echoes were pulling rolling fortresses across the road of shadows, each of the scarred wagons protected by several cohorts of seasoned awakened warriors. The procession looked fearsome, and the head echo especially so. The master in charge of the caravan was riding on its head, and was now looking at Rain. She walked to the side of the road and waved at him. Greetings. The master gave her a suspicious look. Greetings. You startled me, girl. What is a young awakened like you doing in Godgrave alone? Walking through the darkness with no lantern to light the way, on top of that. Skinwalker was gone, but people were still wary of strangers met on the road. This master, too, was on edge. Rain simply grinned. My Coho GT decided to challenge a nightmare, but I chose to stay back. So, I am walking to Red Hill by my lonesome now. And I can see in the dark, so I don't need a lantern, plus, I can take care of myself. I know these parts well. He looked her up and down, his gaze lingering on her powerful memories. You're a veteran, Rain nodded. 7th Royal Legion, from start to finish. Oh, and then I stayed back to build this road. She gave the Road of Shadows another satisfied stomp. The caravan master whistled. A Royal Legionnaire, huh? He hesitated for a moment, then asked, are you any good with that bow? Rain gave the beast of prey a little shake. Would I still be alive if I weren't? He laughed. True. Well, if you're not in the mood to walk all the way to Red Hill, hop aboard. I'd be crazy to refuse the company of one more experienced awakened. A caravan can never have enough defenders, you know. Rain gave him an exaggerated bow. Much obliged. Soon enough, she was climbing over the battlements of the head wagon. There, a group of grimy awakened welcomed her with tense greetings. Introductions were short. Rain stared at one of the guards intently, then said in a tone of disbelief. Holy hell, Pill, is that you? Out there among the merchant guards, a bearded man with harsh eyes was leaning on an enchanted spear. He gave Rain a confused look, then did a double take. Huh, Ronnie. She stared at him with wide eyes. Since when are you awakened? The rest of the guards seemed amused. Pill, do you know this girl? He suddenly seemed excited. Of course. We were on a survey team of a road crew together, back in the Song domain. We were both mundane people back then. Gods, I never expected to see you again. I thought you were dead. Indeed, he was one of the laborers Rain had shared the woes of surveying the Moonriver Plains under Tamar's command with during the construction of the road to Godgrave. She smiled. Well, as you can see, I am very much alive. It's good to see you, too, but weren't you going to open a family shop in some nice city south of Ravenheart? What happened? How did you end up guarding a merchant caravan? The conversation flowed naturally from there, and soon, Rain was accepted by the grumpy caravan guards as Ani of their own. Some time later, she asked. Judging by the scars on the armor of your wagons, it's a bumpy ride. I have to admit, I've never traveled with a caravan before. How dangerous is it, exactly? The guards looked at each other, then sighed. Pill offered somberly, as perilous as you can imagine. The dream realm is not what it used to be, but it's by no means tamed. Sometimes, we get a few whole days of peace and quiet, but usually, there's at least several skirmishes with nightmare creatures each day, some worse than others. Another guard looked into the distance wistfully. Still, by immortal flame's mercy, all of us will reach the destination alive. A third one chuckled. The Ivory Island is far away, so changing stars' grace is unlikely to reach us all the way here, in this cursed place. He surreptitiously looked north, where the hollow mountains were hidden beyond the darkness. The King of Nothing is much closer. Although that one is a madman who likes to kidnap people, so, I wouldn't be hoping for his help, either. It was then that one of the guards, an older man with graying hair and a wry squint to his eyes, spoke from his station at the battlements. There is a third sovereign now, haven't you heard? And he is partial to wanderers like us. A vagabond priest of the Moon Church told me all about him. Rain shifted slightly, sparing him an evaluating look. The man smiled. His name is Astarion. Rain frowned. At the same time, her brother's voice whispered into her ear. Be wary of that one. Rain moved her hand to shape a subtle sign. Why? He lingered for a few moments before answering. Whether these people set out from Ravenheart or from the Weeping Goddess, they would have been on the road for weeks. But that bastard only revealed himself today. The news travels fast, but not that fast. I don't like it. Rain's frown deepened. Astarion, she had heard that name before. In fact, she had heard it too often, in recent months. And every time she had, the circumstances were a little odd. Perhaps because Rain was both a shaper and a giver of names, she was very sensitive to THEM. And that name, Astarion, made her skin crawl. More than anything, it made her feel like she should never speak it aloud, and most of all, should never allow it to take root in her mind. She looked at the older guard somberly. He was smiling happily. Changing Star and the King of Nothing might not help us. But Lord Astarion will. An uncomfortable silence settled between the guards. Eventually, they laughed. A third sovereign? Did you hit your head, fool? Even if there is a third SO Varain, he is probably a rotten bastard. All of them are, except for Lady Changing Star, of course. No wonder you've been borrowing money recently. Did you donate your pay to that Moon Church crook? Pill shook his head and gave the man a derisive smile. Stop embarrassing me in front of Ronnie, will you? Goodness, she'll think that we wanderers are all weak in the head department. But the older guard just continued to smile. You'll see.